Good evening, good morning, and good afternoon, depending on your time zone, and welcome to today's discussion on the prospects of preprint in Bangladesh, brought to you by the joint efforts of Community of Biotechnology and ASAPbio. Community of Biotechnology and ASAPbio are both non-profit organizations working towards making the pursuit of science more accessible worldwide. Our panels include ASAPbio, Susmita Saha, and Tawfasul Islam. Irate is the Associate Director of ASAPbio and has been proactively working towards building awareness for preprints and driving community engagement. Previously, she has been an editor for Biomed Central and PLOS. She is also the facilitator and integrity officer at the Committee on Publications Ethics, or COPE, and the co-lead of Force 11 Research Data Publishing Ethics Working Group. Dr. Susmita Saha is currently the Signal Processing Engineer at Mass Dynamics. Dr. Saha completed her PhD in Biomedical Engineering from the University of Melbourne in 2015, which was a part of the Bionic Eye project conducted by Bionic Vision. For her postdoctoral research, Dr. Saha worked with IBM Research Australia and later joined CSIRO, or the Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organization. Currently, Dr. Saha is involved in a project that is developing analytical methods for protein discovery, characterization, and monitoring. And the final member is Dr. Tawfasul Islam. Dr. Islam is a Fulbright scholar and professor at the Institute of Biotechnology and Genetic Engineering, also known as IBGE, Bangladeshi Sheikh Mujibur Rahman Agricultural University, also known as BSMRAU. He is an internationally acclaimed microbial chemical ecologist who has made a multitude of contributions to his field. His work on phytopathogenic oomycete zoospores and their molecular interactions with plants has been published in over 175 peer-reviewed journals. Each panelist will get about 5 minutes to express their point of view before the panel opens up to discussion. The audience is more than welcome to express their views and questions in the comment section. I will urge the audience to stay until the end because we have a special surprise for you. Now, before we start the panel discussion, what are preprints? To answer your question, ASAPbio has prepared a 10-minute presentation. The panel discussion will start immediately after the presentation. Now, without any delay, Dr. Pula, the floor is all yours. I'm sorry, you're muted. Could you
So apologies. We will have thought after two years of in-home working, we would be better at microphones, but apologies for that. Thank you so much, Asmita, for the invitation and for the opportunity to participate in this panel. At ASAPbio, we are delighted to be partnering with the community on biotechnology on this session. As you mentioned, I thought I would start with a brief introduction to preprints. I call this brief because I'll try to cover as much as possible, but there is always more to discuss on preprints, and we'll touch on more items during the panel discussion, I am sure. So very briefly, also before I dive into preprints as such, I also wanted to give you a little brief of an introduction into ASAPbio for any of you who is not familiar with the organization. We are a non-profit with a mission to make life sciences communication faster and more transparent. And as part of our activities, we have a major focus on supporting a productive use of preprints, specifically in the life sciences. So to get us started on the topic of preprints, I thought I would offer a broad definition, knowing that there may be different definitions in the community as to what a preprint is. For the purpose of this introduction, I'll call a preprint a scholarly manuscript that is posted by the authors to a repository or platform to facilitate open and broad sharing of early work without access limitations. And to highlight a few of the main characteristics of preprints, they are manuscripts that report a scholarly work. They generally receive a DOI or some form of persistent identifier, meaning that they are permanent records of that scholarly work. And this also means that then they can be cited by other community members in their publications and by the authors themselves, again, in other publications, perhaps grant applications and reports. An important element to mention in relation to preprints is the main difference with journal publications, and is the fact that a preprint is not peer-reviewed by the server prior to appearing publicly. There may be a light touch screening process at the preprint server, but this is not the full formal peer review process that journals would do. The preprint, therefore, appears in a format that is not peer-reviewed. Another element that I think is a benefit of preprints and I wanted to highlight is the fact that many servers offer functionalities around versioning. This means that authors can make changes, correct any errors, make updates to their work after they have posted it on a preprint, and then post a new version that also gets linked to the prior versions or the original copy. So we are discussing preprints, and as I mentioned, I come here with a perspective mostly in the life sciences. There's been quite a bit of discussion and interest around preprints in the life sciences over the last 5 years or so. And so you hear data based on the content index in Europe PMC, which indexes both preprints and journal articles. And as you can see, there's been a strong growth in the use of preprints across different disciplines in the life sciences over the last 5 years. To give you a little bit of a sense of what the scale of this means overall, if we are looking at publications, last year in 2021, again, and this is based on the content index in Europe PMC, if we compare the number of preprints that appeared and the number of journal publications, preprints constituted 11% of the total number of journal articles. And we may think that this is actually relatively small. This is a minority compared to journal articles, but one item I would highlight is that if we think about this 5 years before, around 2016, that percentage was under 1%. So we can see that there's been rapid and strong growth over the last 5 years. Another important aspect of preprints is that they have played a major role in informing the response to the COVID-19 pandemic. At the beginning of the pandemic, in the early months of 2020, many researchers chose to post preprints to share their earliest data, their preliminary data that they were gathering all around the coronavirus to try to accelerate progress in responding to the pandemic. As a result of this, we saw many preprints related to COVID-19 posted, both in 2020 and 2021. And we also saw that many of the major milestones in responding to the pandemic, such as the development of new treatments, and importantly, the development of the vaccines to respond to COVID-19, appear first in the form of preprints prior to their eventual publication at journals. One of the things that may be relevant to mention in this context is that even though we are seeing a strong adoption and a good progress in this respect related to preprints, we are also seeing some trends suggesting that there is quite a big disparity in the use of preprints across different geographical regions and countries. So the map here is developed based on the content combined of preprints in the preprint servers, bioRxiv, and medRxiv, based on the affiliation of the corresponding author. And as you can see from the heat map, there are huge disparities in terms of the representation by certain countries, a strong representation from the United States and a number of European countries, and less preprints being posted from other countries, including some of the countries in Africa and Asia. I have listed on the table as a reference the content in number of preprints at both bioRxiv and medRxiv for several Asian countries, including Bangladesh, again, to show you a little bit of a sense of the disparities that we're seeing and how in some countries we're seeing more the position of preprints than others, although of course we should also bear in mind that the content, the number of papers produced will be also to a certain degree related to the research output and the country overall. Oh, and the other nuance I wanted to mention is that there are many other servers currently available to researchers apart from bioRxiv and medRxiv, and therefore the trends may also vary slightly from one server to another. I wanted to also mention briefly what are the drivers for researchers and the motivation for researchers to post preprints. What are the benefits that preprints bring to researchers? The first and most important is the fact that preprints make your research work available almost immediately. I'm sure many of you will be familiar with the process to publish your manuscripts at journals, where you may need to submit several times, and then the journal will proceed with the peer review of the manuscript. This can take weeks, months, and in some situations, even years until the manuscript gets accepted and then is publicly available to the rest of the community. By comparison, the process of submission at a preprint server takes only a matter of days. The authors can take their manuscript that is they are ready to share with the community, submit it to a preprint server. There may be a screening process that usually takes only a few days, and then the server will make that manuscript publicly available, again, in a matter of days, which means that that work is already available to the community to provide feedback to the authors and to start building on that. This hugely accelerates the communication of that scientific work. Speed is obviously an important factor, but there are other benefits of preprints that I wanted to mention. Preprints are free to post and free to access, so that there are no financial barriers for researchers to either participate in the position in sharing their work through a preprint server. And there are also no access barriers. There is no subscription fee and not paywall associated with the preprint as it appears. This means that there is a huge possibility to get greater visibility and reach for that work. The preprint will be available to anyone with an internet connection. And also preprints are increasingly included in indexing services such as EuroPMC, which I mentioned, or Google Scholar, which means that the preprints will appear in the literature searches that the members of your community are carrying out to keep abreast of the latest scientific developments. Also important to mention that there have been prior studies looking at the attention and citation levels for preprints, and several of them have pointed out that there is an association between having a preprint for the work and the level of attention and citations that the same paper will receive once it appears at the journal. So again, there is an opportunity here to get further citations and credit for your work. And as I mentioned, because the preprint is publicly available to the community, there are opportunities to get feedback or even open up collaborations with others working in similar lines of research. Something else that it's important to highlight here is that a large majority of journals in biomedicine now accept preprints. The situation was different several years ago. Some researchers had concerns that if they posted a preprint, then they will have restrictions as to which journals they could submit their work for publication. I'm happy to say that the situation has massively changed over the few recent years. And now a large majority of journals, I'm not going to say every one of them, but a large majority, including the full portfolio of publishers such as Springer, Nature, or Wiley, now accept papers that have been deposited as preprints. So that should be absolutely not a deterrent. However, as I mentioned, preprints differ from journal articles in that they get served without peer review. This is a concern that we hear sometimes from researchers. So I wanted to touch a little bit on this potential question that may come up to researchers who consider posting preprints. An important aspect to mention here is the fact that even though the server will not complete peer review for the paper, there are now many communities and projects and initiatives that are coordinating the public reviews of preprints, which is an opportunity for other researchers to participate also in providing open feedback and reviews and making those available so that there is this additional value and context for any readers of the preprint. I mentioned here a few of the available platforms and communities. There's been a lot of interest around this public review of preprints for COVID-19, for example, but there are many others out there that are participating in this drive towards providing evaluation and reactions on preprints in a public format. Another important element that I would mention to anyone who is concerned about perhaps placing their work under scrutiny by sharing it as a preprint in an early and open fashion is that I would make the case that getting this early feedback on your preprint provides a much better opportunity of improving your work and a less painful process than having to correct any errors once the paper appears at the journal. An example I wanted to mention, again, in the context of COVID-19, is this example of a preprint that was posted last year on Preprints with the Lancet. There was very quick and prompt reactions to the paper from the community, raising some questions about the study, the conclusions, etc. And this led the preprint server to solicit fast reviews, and they took the decision to remove the paper due to concerns. But interestingly for the authors, they then went on several months later to publish the same work, the same study, at a journal. And by the time that paper had appeared at the journal, they had corrected all of the reporting issues and the potential questions about the validity of the conclusions. So I would argue that this was a positive experience in the sense of getting the community engaged in commenting in this work, and also helping the authors improve the work before it appeared as a journal article. With that, I wanted to cover the introduction part. I'm sure we'll touch on other things, but before I close this, I also wanted to mention that for anyone interested in learning more about preprints, at ASAPbio, we have a community of researchers and others interested in preprints, so it's a nice way of interacting with others who have shared interest or learning more about preprints and the latest developments in this space. So if you're interested, do join us. And then, having covered all of that, I thought I would spend maybe a minute or two covering a couple of things that we may explore or hopefully can fit into the panel discussion with the other speakers. We've covered what was the trend over the last 5 years, but where are we going from here? There's been a lot of attention on preprints. What comes next? There are a few areas that I think are going to receive attention in coming years that I wanted to highlight. The first one is, as I mentioned, there's been we are seeing disparities in terms of the use of preprints across different disciplines, but also different regions. And I think there should be some emphasis put here in better understanding what is driving those differences, what may be the challenges for researchers in different regions, because I think it is important that we build a preprint ecosystem where everyone can participate and we bring the different perspectives to the table. Related to this, I believe it is also important to drive recognition of preprints as valid research outputs as part of any assessment frameworks in place at institutions or even at national level. I think this will be another of the potential drivers, again, in terms of adoption, and one of the factors that may be influencing the disparities we see across different countries. The countries where I mentioned there is a strong representation of preprints, for example, the United States and several countries in Europe, also overlap with countries where funders have come forward in recognizing preprints as research outputs. So I think there must be some association there that is worth looking into. We probably will also see further development of best practices for preprint servers. We have seen many new servers appear in the last few years, covering sometimes any discipline, sometimes they are discipline or even region specific. I think we're going to see more discussions as to how the preprint servers can develop practices that work for all of the parties, how to handle the different versions, making sure that they're linked together, a link to the journal article version when there is one, the handling of withdrawals, the handling of the screening process that at the moment is can be quite different from one server to another. And then finally, I think it will be important to have conversations early on at ensuring that we have the values of diversity and inclusivity in this space. Again, I think we need to learn from how the journal ecosystem develops so that we try to extract some lessons from that we can bring into the conversation around preprints early on. and again, make sure that we bring every researcher from every region and every discipline along the way in further developments related to preprints. And with that, I'll hand over back to Asmita. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your wonderful presentation and for your input. Now the floor will go to Dr. Susmita Saha. Dr. Shah, would you like to say something before you start?
Okay, so can you hear me?
Yes.
Cool. Yeah, thanks so much, first of all, to COB for the panel invitation, and especially to the director, Asmita Roy, for the invitation. Yeah, honestly, I got really excited when I got the invite, mainly because I got to know about the COB for the first time after the invitation, and I did a bit of Google search after that, and found out that you are doing an amazing job with ASAPbio to promote life science and technology, biotechnology research in Bangladesh. And I would really like to support this really useful and bold initiative in Bangladesh, where the research opportunities are very limited, of course, and the resources are very limited. So I think it's a pretty good initiative, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to be part of you. Coming back to the topic, the future of preprints in Bangladesh. So as a researcher, I haven't published any preprint yet on my own, but that doesn't mean that I don't like it or I will never go for preprints in near future. In fact, I see preprints as a very good way to communicate with the research community and to increase the visibility of your work at a very early stage, to increase the collaboration opportunities, to attract more funding, to make your research ongoing, and ultimately to make the final publication in very good journals, prestigious journals, and to make a good publication that could be formed by the potential feedback from the community. So yeah, there are very good, really good and useful points about the preprints. I think let me Asmita, thanks very much for a pleasant introduction. But I think I will give a little bit of brief about my research career. Then you can maybe connect to the background or connect to the view where I'm talking from. So yeah, I did after my PhD, I did 2 postdoctoral fellowship with IBM Research Australia and CSIRO. And now I'm working as a signal processing team lead in a Melbourne-based medical startup, but it's kind of a sciencey startup. So we do publish stuffs in addition to commercializing software products to assist the life scientists in drug discovery and drug quality monitoring, these kind of processes, wherever they're in academia, in research organizations, in biopharmaceutical companies. So we are making products for them, and we publish stuff as well, that I've said. So all through this experience, obviously I have published a number of journal articles, journal and conference articles. I have some patents, and I have published book chapters. So in this whole process, I will tell you how and where I see the preprint. So I guess if we have a very novel and concrete idea, and we have an initial proof of that idea, we should think about patents at first. But the patenting process could be a complicated one, especially for Bangladesh. So let's come to the next stage. Like when you want to convert your idea to a long-term research study, you have sufficient data set and you have got your some good results, like the first very initial good results. You are excited about that, but at that point, you might not have sufficient samples to publish it in a good journal. So really at that point, you might consider for preprints submission. As a scientist, I can tell you that during all of my research studies, I followed good, novel, well-standard preprints. I would like to cite them in my journal articles. So that is to tell you that the scientific community really values it when that is well-standard and very related to their work. So it is worth to submit, or it is worth to publish, I guess. Um, so, so from all of these perspectives, I would really encourage the preprints in Bangladesh. So mainly to summarize two reasons. First of all, to accelerate the research process, because in biotechnology or life science kind of field, we all know that the experiments can be really delayed with a lot of complexities like ethical approvals, location, resources, all of this might go very wrong and might be very elongated. So in all of these conditions or situations, I think preprints could be a very good way and quick way to really connect with the research world, the related scientific community, and with a way of like preprint is not a peer reviewed, is not a publication, but it is a well-valued scientific article. So I could really see its value to accelerate the whole process. And it can be a very good addition in the application for the funding and potential collaborative opportunities. So yeah, so it can make the total process ongoing. There are some disadvantages, and Dr. Puebla already presented and already said that in the presentation that some of the limitations have been recovered in the past couple of years. A lot of journals are now recommending and recognizing preprints. Still, you might want to check if you want to go for a high impact factor journal, if they are really accepting that, you might want to check these little things. Yeah, and at the same time, I would conclude by saying that it is not a peer-reviewed article. Yeah, and we should really maintain honesty and credibility, responsibility, and ethics as a researcher to publish really authentic and accurate results, and not to take chances at any case. I guess it is really hard to establish your qualification and credibility as a researcher and scientist. So we really need to be honest and ethical in the preprints publication, because it's in public and it can really. Sorry, am I going over time? Okay, so I will conclude very soon. Yeah, so I think yeah, we really need to maintain that honesty and ethics in submitting the preprints. That's all. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shah, for your insightful view. And now, the last but not the least, Dr. Tawfazul Islam, would you like to say a few words before you share your view?
Thank you so much. I feel very honored to be here with Dr. Puebla and Dr. Saha. And I was enjoying the talk of Dr. Puebla. She elaborated what is preprint and the real status of preprint at this moment. And Dr. Saha also discussed the merit and demerits of the preprint. The topic is very interesting, and I am very much thankful to community of biotechnology, a galaxy of young stars in our country. They are working together an amazing way to promote science through, a virtual system. And I have been attached to them since their, establishment a couple of years ago. In case of preprint, actually what we need to know why we do the science. Actually, the researcher, when we discover something to understand the natural world, and to find new information, the immediate job is to communicate with others, which we call scholarly communications. And we have, century old system of peer reviewed journal publication, and it is a dream, and it has the recognition system. But over last, a decade, the sciences scholarly communication system is evolving very fast. And once all the journals are in printed paper, printed reprints gave lots of joys in my early career when I received a reprint, and the a different smell of the reprint. But the world is changing very fast. Almost all of the scholarly journals, they are now, you can find online, and electronic version, PDF is now, most preferred. So things are changing. Now the question is, the preprint as well as open science. Preprint, I think it is one of the approach of immediately sharing the discovery to the community. And we do science for making a change in the society, to solve the problem. For example, in case of tackling the world health emergency, COVID-19, I guess the best example is the tackling of COVID-19. In the past history, we have never seen such a rapid response of global scientific community to tackle a human problem. Within, less than 1 year, scientists discovered the solution. That is one of the solutions, that is vaccine. And why it happened? Because scientists immediately published their discovery through preprint, and immediately shared by others. For example, RT-PCR method, genome sequencing, they deposited in GIS, AID, and other people's shared wherever the variant developed. Immediately they didn't care about peer reviewed journal papers, because it was a serious, and it has been a serious health emergency in the world. And preprint as well as open science approaches, you can see all the journals in the world, papers published related to COVID science, all are open access. Really amazing. So I am a worker of not only a preprint, open science and open data sharing should be the best way in this 21st century to unite global scientific community to solve the problem, not only to target to have a patent, not only target to publish a paper in Nature or Science. I can share one of my very rich experience in my life. In 2016, Bangladesh experienced a devastating fungal infection in the wheat field, and 15,000 hectares of wheat was devastated. Completely yield was lost, 100% yield loss in most cases. And all the spikes of the wheat became white within a week, and farmers frustrated very much. And our scientists never seen such a disease in the past. So we were in a puzzling situation to decrease the or destroy the fungus. Government decided to burn the crop. So fire created another how to say fairness among the smallholder farmers. And as a student of biotechnology, I decided to understand what is the cause of the disease. and in collaboration with many 33 international researchers from 4 continents. What we did, I first shared the message with some symptoms with through Twitter and Facebook. And immediately, I received huge responses from the global scientific community. And we made a platform. And that platform, you see, we opened a website which called Open Wheat Blast website, to understand the origin of the pathogen, whether it is, from our region, any fungus, through host germ or genome evolution moved to the wheat, or it came from South America, because in South America, since 1985, it has been confined in only South American countries. So it was our target. And what happened, you see, in Bangladesh, we have lots resource constrained country. We cannot use the advanced technology. But what happened, due to communication through Twitter and Facebook, my friends in like Sufyan Kamau, very famous biologist in UK, the Sainsbury Laboratory, and many other, Nick Talbot and Daniel Kroll in Switzerland, they joined. And they asked me to collect the samples and send the materials immediately to UK. And what happened, you see, we had no project, but it was a plant health emergency. And within 6 weeks of time, we made a conclusion. How? When we got the sequence data, we shared all the raw sequence data through Open Wheat Blast website. And people downloaded the data and they compared the data with other sequences. So genome epidemiologists and many other researchers, they participated with their own expertise. And we made a call. Scientists issue a rallying cry for wheat blast research, and it was published in Nature and Science. And really, within 6 weeks of time, we made a precise conclusion that the emergence of wheat blast in Bangladesh, uh, you know, uh, originated from the South American lineage of Magna Porto. That means it somehow came to Bangladesh from South America. And immediately we published our data in Preprint bioarchive. And that was stormy, as Puebla mentioned. We received, hundreds of comments. People say, this is the mistake, you didn't check the, isolate the fungus in the laboratory, you just analyze the transcriptomic data, or like that. What we did, we submitted the paper in a high profile journal, but as people are making comments, we are also parallelly doing the research. So we isolated the sample and we got the data, and we really received the comments from the reviewer that you should do the Cox postulate and these things. Already we got the peer reviewers or feedback from the scientific community, and immediately we added those data and we published the paper within 6 months, full publication. You can imagine how fast we moved. And what helped this preprint as well as open science and open data sharing approaches for Bangladesh to tackle this disease, once we precisely and globally acceptable consensus that the origin of the pathogen is South America, then we asked South American scientists in a global conference in our region and asked them what strategies you have adopted over the 35 years. And then we suggested our farmers, and next years we had no epidemic. Still we have the disease, but we got the 35 years knowledge from South America due to the engagement of the global scientific community. So preprint in my life, I think it is one of the best example in the history of science, because after that, exciting and fantastic collaboration from the global scientific community, without a single, money or project, we solved a big puzzle. And PLOS Biology editor then asked us to share our experiences. How did you made such a, big collaboration to address a plant health emergency? And you can find that paper in as a perspective article in PLOS biology. We told the whole story in a systematic way, and what are the challenges we faced, we also shared. One of the most important challenges I can share with you, in case of preprint, those who are thinking, it is very important. For example, preprint is not a so-called peer-reviewed publication. Okay, it is not a peer reviewed publication, but it is a scholarly communication. You immediately shared your data. When we were working on wheat blast, other groups international groups and our domestic groups in USA, they are also working parallelly. But what they did, they didn't share like us immediately, and they were doing, in a traditional way in the laboratory. When they saw our data published in preprint, then they immediately made a small paper, one-page paper in plant disease, the first report of wheat blast in Bangladesh, caused by Magnaportheorizing. We already published this story, whole story, not only one page, in the preprint as well as Open Wheat Blast website. But in peer-reviewed journal, it was claimed that they first discovered it, but we did it 6 weeks before. So this is the ecosystem, as Puebla mentioned, in scientific world. uh, Once a paper is published in preprint, as it is DUI identification system, as well as it is indexing by the databases. So we need to have a consensus. We need more discussion. Once a paper is published in preprint with new discovery, it should be considered already published. It is nobody should claim after 3 months that is or patent, or claim this same discovery by others. So preprint acceptance by the how to say official process, for example tenure or promotion or grants, it should be we need to think in a different way, as the world is changing very fast. So preprint offers peer review by not only anonymous to reviewers. It is open for all, so there is huge chances for finding the holes and weaknesses. As you can find the holes and weaknesses, you have the liberty. You should also accept the strength of the paper, the discovery. So we have to find the mechanism. I am a little bit more advanced than the preprint. What I think, to solve the real life problem like COVID-19 or any other emergency in our society, global scientific community should work together, exchange materials, and exchange the data. Even, for example, in Figshare or Genedu, one figure you can publish and can have the DUI, and that would be the would promote the bigger impact of our hard work in the science labs to the society, which is our ultimate goal. In Bangladesh, I encourage the scientists here to publish their paper in preprint, as most of the leading journals, they accept to publish your paper in preprints, and as well as you submit for the peer review. And this is the I think a trend, not only trend, we are changing in like that way. And I hope in within few years the situation will be changed at grants, donors, as well as the institutions and scientific community. We are accepting day by day. Acceptance is increasing about the preprints, although there are lots of challenges. In my case, I promote open science, open data sharing, as I have a real life experience in case of open wheat blast. But I have also little bitter experiences, as we saw after our discovery. Even 3 months later, scientists claim that the first report or like that. So we need to discuss more, and have consensus, and especially we need to discuss as community level as well as international level. And preprints not only in biology, it has been practiced in physical science, mathematics since long. Even 1960. But in biology, it is not so old, around a decade we are practicing. But hopefully, after our experiences in COVID-19, uh, the way we practiced open science and open data sharing, and which helped us to save millions of lives in this world and still helping. I think we need to get the lesson from it. And in our wheat blast paper, we mentioned that open science and open data sharing approaches should be the best way for scientific practices, not only for plant health emergency, for any emergency. And we found immediately after our publication in 2016, in COVID-19, it has been hugely been practiced. I am very happy, and I think this lesson and these experiences would help scientists or encourage scientists to get open science as well as open data sharing approaches, preprint as the main vehicle. And if we all scientists start to use it, then it would be best. One example, I would like to conclude my talk after giving one example. For example, we submitted a paper in Lancet, and Lancet almost forced us to publish our paper in their preprint. MDPI, they have the preprint server. So the things are changing, you see. And if all publishers adopt this practice, and if the donors as well as society, scientific community accept it, and day by day, as Puebla showed the statistics, it is skyrocketing the publication in the preprint servers. I think one day, like online journal, preprint would be a common practice, and for publishing scientific or sharing scientific discovery, as well as publish in the peer-reviewed journal. I am, in fact, the a current peer reviewing system. I am an editor of Frontiers in Microbiology as well as PLOS ONE. Peer reviewing system, my experience is that there are lots of weaknesses. So it's better to open, first publish and then peer review. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your anecdote. It illustrates how preprints can help create a scholar community, and by rapid communication can help accelerate scientific pursuits. Now we will open up to discussions, and we have a few questions from the audience. The first question is addressed to Dr. Shaha. Uh, so it's from ASAPbio. So, Dr. Shaha, the question is, could you speak a little more about how we could use preprints to share work prior to submission to a journal? What are the benefits of sharing, and how does this help for people who are in the biomedical engineering field?
Yeah. So, as I said that in the field of biomedical engineering, if you're not doing modeling or simulation kind of studies, if you're doing studies that involve experiments that can go a bit longer, uh, can be very much delayed due to very silly reasons. So we know all about this practical stuffs. So in those kind of scenario, I I would really recommend that if you get very initial good results from your experiments, and you are excited about that, you know that it will just need a lot of uh, data points to publish in a good journal. Then you should consider submitting a preprint on your initial results. and then taking the feedback from the community that could point out really critical flaws in your studies. That will refine your studies, refine your results, and that can lead to a very good publication. As also Dr. Tafazul, he mentioned about his practical experiences, and I have also experienced that. Yeah, so I would really recommend thinking about preprints at a kind of an intermediate stage of your whole research study.
Thank you so much. We have another question from ASAPbio addressing Dr. Islam. Fantastic story about tackling wheat blast. How can we ensure reviewers and editors view preprints as published? Sir, can you hear me? Sir, I think you're muted.
Yes, a very nice question. Yes, how can we ensure reviewers and editors view preprints as published? It's really a big question because uh, uh, it needs a bit time because evolution is going on in our way of communicating science, that is scholarly communication. So as Puebla showed the data, I hope one day preprints would be a common practice. So it needs time and it needs, communication and discussion. Uh, 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 Already, reviewers and editors of many leading journals, they know they are also practicing the same thing. So the question is, once you publish a new discovery in preprints, and whether it is considered as published or acceptable discovery or not, it is the question whether other people can, after seeing your result, whether they can also do the experiment or publish in a peer-reviewed journal hurriedly or like that. So this type of a cultural change, as Puebla mentioned, ecosystem. This ecosystem, one day we cannot imagine that tomorrow will be happen, but I am very much confident because due to COVID-19, uh, a paradigm shift in our lifestyle and practices have been happen. You see, the virtual, we are doing the meeting, and many people are now doing job from the home. So things are changing. I'm very much hopeful because everybody would accept preprints as it is the best way to share the knowledge, and knowledge, the raw materials for the development, technology and other things, so other people can get your knowledge and do not do the same thing in their laboratory, already been known what scientists do, so we can save our time, and it will unite global scientific community to work together, which is instrumental for making bigger impact in the society. Thank you for the nice question.
Okay, the next question from Samia Newchat. I think the people I would like to address this. It is, can someone cite a preprint?
Yeah, this is a question I tend to hear relatively often. The bottom line short answer is you can. As I mentioned, is preprints get a persistent identifier, usually in the form of a DOI. It means that there is a permanent record of that scholarly work available on the preprint server. It's not going to disappear. You can cite it in your own publications. Other community members can cite it because you can always go back and retrieve it and scrutinize it by yourself. Sometimes I hear about this question in the context of whether I can cite the preprint, for example, in a paper I'm submitting to a journal. And here I would say that there are different editorial policies at different journals. Some accept including preprints in reference in lists, and some others do not. My personal point of view is that whenever you're writing a manuscript, whether it is to post as a preprint, to submit it to a platform, to submit it to a journal, you should always be transparent and honest. As Dr. Saha mentioned, we should be honest as to what's the information that we used in our research that help us shape our research question, our interpretation of the results. We use somebody else's methodology, etc. So if you're writing a paper where as part of that you use a preprint by another group or by your own group, I would encourage you to cite it, because I think that's more transparent and honest in terms of saying here is the basis for my research question, my interpretation of my data, etc. And anyone can go and scrutinize it, whether it has been peer reviewed or not, because again, the preprint has a DOI and it's a permanent record. So my recommendation is to always be transparent and cite preprints. If you encounter any issues in your journal submission, I would also encourage you to raise these same arguments to the editor to see if they would reconsider, because I think by asking authors of submissions to journals to remove the citation to the preprint, we're actually essentially putting them in the tricky spot of potentially doing plagiarism. Essentially, you are putting information that is not from you and you're not crediting it. So I would just encourage you to be vocal about this and discuss with the editor, because it may just be an issue where they were not aware and they're happy to reconsider.
On that note, we have another question that's similar to the topic. Is do preprints impose the risk of one's work being stolen, or is it just as protected as journal publications?
Can I start briefly, and hopefully the others in the panel can also add? This is something that tends to come up as well, in terms of saying, well, I shared this earlier, so other people in the community may see my work and submit it to a journal before I do. I would say that what we have seen so far, and now again preprints are taking more adoption, and we have a few years of reference and context to evaluate, is that we haven't seen a trend where there has been more scooping or research being more stolen in the context of preprints than in journal publications. When I worked in a lab around 20 years ago, and this thing about my work being stolen and am I the first or the second was the same conversation, and there were no preprints in my context at the time. So essentially the conversation, to me, I don't think it necessarily has changed related to preprints. I would actually argue that, again, as we have been discussing, the preprint is a permanent record, so you can always refer back to it and say, I posted it, and here is the date, because the preprint record will have the date. And another thing to mention that I think is important is that, also in terms of recognition from the editors and reviewers, is that there are a number of journals now that are operating what they call scoop protection policies, where what they say is that if you submit to our journal your manuscript and you had posted as a preprint prior, we will recognize the date of a preprint. So even if there is another publication after your preprint, they will recognize your work as original in terms of the review process. So essentially, I would encourage more journals to move in that direction, because I think, again, it recognizes the validity of preprints.
I would like to add one point. For example, if you publish your discovery in a preprint, after that, when it appears online, nobody can have the patent, because patent office, when they examine, in our experience, we have found same discovery already been available in the preprint. So people cannot stole the discovery like that way, and we need more. It is a new, so there might be some errors, but day by day the situation will be changed, and the citation of the preprints are now common. As an editor, what I do before accepting a paper, if we see a strong argument that new discovery or something, I also check the databases, and when I find it is published in preprint, I never accept such a strong claim in any paper. Even peer reviewers are accepted it. So as it is open to all, so scientists basically they are not their job is not stealing something. So always people know how to recognize others, and once it is open, and as Puebla mentioned, it is not a newspaper. After a few years you would not get it. Just like journal publication, preprint server also, they guaranteed that the preprint, the materials or the paper will remain for longer time. So it is a permanent. So there is no doubt, and we can cite as well as we should not go for the wrong way. I think even now our situation is very good, and within couple of years time, when it would be accepted by all and it would be a common practice, then we would at that time we could not maybe think like that way. Thank you. Nice question.
Dr. Shah, would you like to add a little bit to this?
I think I would repeat the same with Dr. Puebla and Dr. Tofazil. I think really preprints mostly helps in the opposite way, that instead of your work being stolen, you can really mitigate the risk of your past discovery being stolen. So lot of disputes over the first discovery or the first claims that could be solved by submitting the early preprints, early articles like preprints. So yeah, and also researchers mostly publish actually preprints from that perspective, to really make their first discovery through any scientific article, and a percentage of that also contain a little bit of doubts. They want to see that whatever is their claim is really an authentic claim when they are sharing it with public and the scientific community. So in both ways, it will help.
I have another question, and I think this would Dr. Pupila would like to answer this. It's, can someone post their article as a preprint while it's under review?
The answer is yes. In most journals, they accept it, even encourage it. And even during your submission, you can mention whether you published in some portal or not as preprint, or some journals, as Dr. Puebla mentioned, some publishers ask you whether you wish to, publish it in the preprint portal or not. They will do from on behalf of you and publish your submission in the preprint server, as well as process for peer review.
Yeah, we have another question from Siddharth Gautam. What is the format of bibliography for preprints? Is it the same as journal? Do we have APA, MLA, etc. formats for it?
Yeah, I'm not sure that there is necessarily a single established format for this, but you can certainly include them in reference lists. I believe that there are some referencing standards that do include preprints. But basically, I guess just to give a couple of tips, I would always recommend that if you are including preprints in the reference list, you mention that it is a preprint. So again, any reader of the article is very clear as to the format and has it been peer reviewed or not. And it can also be quite relevant to mention if you have different versions of the preprint, to add the version that you are referring to, because again, the preprint may have evolved since initially posted, so like that is very clear for the reader which is the version that you are making use of. We also have some information on our website. We posted a blog post on ASAPbio just discussing again all of these elements, so I encourage you to check that out on the ASAPbio website.
Thank you so much. And now I'm not going to pinpoint to one question because a lot of people are asking the same questions. How do we get people to accept preprints more as a real publications? How do we raise awareness? What do you think?
I would say a couple of things, and then again, I'm sure there will be other suggestions. One is I would encourage everyone to be vocal about preprints. Essentially, bring preprints to any conversations you have with your peers about the latest work. In the same way as you may discuss articles, say if you're involved in a journal club, for example, bring preprints as well. That's a very clear way of just introducing preprints into your day-to-day work. So take any opportunity of your day-to-day work as a researcher to bring preprints into that process, again, informing the discussion of the latest research, providing comments, etc. And then the other thing I would suggest doing in terms of broader recognition is, and we have touched on this already a little bit, is I do believe that there is value in driving for change in researcher evaluation frameworks. Again, how the institutions, universities, and at national level, how researchers are evaluated. And we can try to drive for preprints to be recognized as part of that. In many countries, there is still a focus on journal publications and publishing in certain journals that fit certain criteria. But the preprint is essentially the work of the researcher. It may be an earlier version, more preliminary, but it's still that quality work by the researcher. And I think that we can start again by driving these conversations in each of the institutions, in your own university, in your own groups, to try to put preprints on the radar in that respect. But I'd be interested in the other speakers' suggestions as well.
Thank you. Very nice points. One important point as a researcher in a developing country, it is free. No need to pay this, and open for all, and it is permanent, how to say, a platform. So publishing a paper takes a very long time, sometime 1 year. Even a reviewer can ask to do some experiments or like that. As Pablo mentioned, I think it takes time, but we need more discussion. And even in case of preprint, preprint currently, no structural restriction or other things. And in case of preprint, it is open for all the, peers in you, or expert in your field. So it is one kind of recognition, that is, you show up your result to the global scientific community, not restricted for a region. It is open for all. And I think to get popularity or acceptance, more discussion is necessary. And trend is very good. Acceptance, if we consider last 5 or 6 years, it is a new spin after COVID-19. And hopefully within few years, it would be not more a big question, rather submission and then peer review. New transformation in the publication system may come, because in some journals, for example, eLife, they publish the reviewers' comments also together, your finest version of the paper. So things are evolving very fast. Thank you.
Dr. Shah, would you like to add something?
Yep, I think we can really make it popular and recognized well enough by making the well standard of the article. That is the first thing, and Dr. Tofazul has said some of it, that we can really think about doing some statistics on quantitative metrics. That from the experience we have seen that preprints submission really can increase the citations of your final publication, can increase the media attention, can increase the reach of audience, the number of reachable audience. So we can do some statistics and to make it really acceptable and more popular. Yeah, we can think about these things.
Thank you so much, everyone. This was a very productive session, I think, and I think everybody had something to take away from it. And people who did not know about preprints, I think, have gone out of this event with a well-informed understanding of what it is and how it could be good for us. Now, as mentioned at the very beginning of our session, I did say that there is a little treat for everyone, so do stick till the end. And the treat is that a new writer, Zahura Zanzabil, has written a little skit that evolves around preprints. So this is to communicate a little bit more about preprints through comedy. So I would share it now, and it's for 8 minutes. I would really appreciate if
Rintaro
everybody
Watanabe
stayed.
is a maniacal physicist in Tokyo. Rintaro Watanabe is a maniacal physicist in Tokyo, Japan. He has just invented a time machine. Usually, he does not feel the need to share his genius with the world. However, this time around, he deigns to share his knowledge with the poor peasants. Even the mighty have to subject themselves to the ordeal of preprints and reviewers. Unsure of whether he would pursue this travesty, Watanabe decides to seek counsel from those he deems his equal: Epstein, Bluton, and the Honorable Shelton Sherpa. He puts his handy creation to use to bring them to his timeline.
Rintaro Watanabe, the savior of the planet, the solver of mysteries, the yielder of time, the beginner of... Ah, that must be Mr. Epstein.
Goodness! Where was the problem I was solving? And who are you, sir?
Mr. Epstein, 'tis I, the great Rintaro Watanabe, the savior of this planet, the solver of mysteries, the yielder of time, the beginner of the glorious time machine, the great Rintaro Watanabe.
Ah, this is quite impressive. You have quite outdone yourself, Mr. Watanabe. So, why have you brought me here?
Well, wait. Mr. Epstein, aren't you, I don't know, a little overwhelmed right now?
Yes, well, I have been pondering on time travel for quite a while now, but I don't see the point of being excessively expressive right now. It would be a little counterproductive.
All right. I asked you here to consult your opinion on preprints.
Preprints? Why the sudden interest?
I was considering publishing my work, even though these ignorant people don't deserve it. So I wanted a rough idea of what that might entail. The preprints seem to be an important part of it.
A man of your caliber never took the trouble of publishing?
I consider it beneath my dignity, but I am considering it this time.
My friend, science is for the people.
Ah, that must be Sir Perseus Bluton.
How lovely!
What strange land is this? Is creation nearing its end?
Ah, Sir Bluton.
Get away, you strange creature!
Calm down, my friend.
Friend? Friend? Who are you?
A few moments later.
Preprints? How strange! We have none. We just present our working code. What are they?
Preprints are scientific articles that haven't been peer-reviewed or published yet. In my day, they weren't used for research, but now, as my young friend tells me, they're being increasingly used in research.
But why use them before peer review?
Well, as far as I know.
Wait! How do you know all this much? These are from contemporary sources.
Child, I'm Epstein. My brain is so awesome. They will mummify it in a museum for hundreds to see.
I'm sure my brain is better than yours.
Well, it must be the great Sheldon Trooper.
Where am I? Oh no, I was in my spot, eating takeout. Jenny? Leonardo? Annie? What's happening? Mima? Well, I haven't seen you three before. Or have I? Epstein saw? Oh my god.
Several days later.
I was saying, preprints are used increasingly because it contributes to free flow of information.
Preposterous.
Hardly, science should be accessible. Preprints also increase the chances of obtaining early feedback and comments, and also increase the number of citations, and can also reduce the predatory publishing, in addition to making authors more enthusiastic about their work.
I would like to disagree with Sir Epstein, if I may. Preprints suffer lack of peer review, absence of quality in controversy, concerns about premature data, media coverage without robust evaluation, risk of double citation by publishing a peer-reviewed article. The preprint may also be cited. Lack of ethical and statistical guidelines, lack of respect for COPE or ICMGE guidelines, breach of intellectual property regulations in some countries, possible harm to health in certain cases, information overload, breach of Engelfinger rule, a strategy conducted to discourage dissemination of research reports before they are published in the journal, rush to post low-quality research.
Did you just read out from Wikipedia?
Well, no. I read it before and I have a perfect retention capacity that renders me.
I shouldn't have brought this guy here.
My dear young friend Sheldon, I must also tell you that preprints promote and encourage young researchers and also increases their chances of receiving grants and funds, a capital way to nurture young talent.
All this talk has made me tired. I must have that boiled egg I left at home. My housekeeper got angered because I seemed to have my boiled wine wash instead of my egg. Anyhow, how do we go home?
No!
Excellent.
I hope you all enjoyed it.
Yeah,
Yeah, truly.
Nice.
very
Thank
nice.
you. Okay, and with that, we conclude this event. I hope everybody had something to take away from it. And thank you so much for finding the time in your very busy schedule for coming to this event and sharing your insightful thoughts.
Ashmita and your team, community of biotechnology, possibly you first, arranged such a program for the community, our community. So we congratulate you for this, choosing this important topic, and also the great, scholars. I really feel very much honored. Thank you, Ashmita, for nicely running us, and hopefully people also get something. Last point is missing. Uh, Preprint helped me to get at least 1 dozen of collaborators across the world help me to get lots of fun. So I am flooded with fun. So this is the big experience I share with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much
so
for
much
the
for
opportunity.
Yeah. Thanks, Asmita, and to CUB. Thanks very much. It is a
Thank you
really
so
nice
much
initiative.
for your kind words, but I have to say I couldn't have done this without my team. So it's not just me, it's the entire COP team working together trying to make this happen. And
Sure.
of course, without the help of ASAPbio.
Thank
Right.
you.
Thank you so
Bye.
much to all the team. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Bye.